What do we have? And what do we need? These two questions ring out from this very, very important gospel that Luke shares with us. And why do I say important? Well, not because of some historical famous event that is recounted. As a matter of fact, Luke is the only one who tells this story. We don't know who the 72 people are. There are no names. We didn't even know that Jesus would have that many followers because it was few and far between in the beginning. So why is it important? Well, the 72 are us today, and countless numbers of people, past and future. The journey is not to a specific place. He doesn't say send the 72 to Rome or to Capernaum or to Jerusalem or anywhere else for that matter. He tells them to go out. The journey is life, life itself, day by day life, wherever we find ourselves. The quote that life is a journey and not a destination, which really comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson and not Aerosmith, believe it or not, is really true. It's about everything along the way. Jesus calls us to be disciples, to proclaim the kingdom of God. And what that means is to proclaim what we believe by the way that we live it, by the way that we show it. Just as 2,000 years ago, it doesn't happen nearly as much today as it should. And that is because the reasons are all the same. They're right here in the word itself. First of all, and maybe most basically, we don't believe that Jesus, that God, is talking to us. But he is. Jesus says the harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. Well, too oftentimes that quote has been narrowed down to talk about priesthood and priestly vocations, and I'm not sure that that's what it's about. The harvest is abundant. There are many, many believers, many, many people throughout the world who on some level consider and call themselves Catholic Christians. But how many of them are out there living it? How many of them worship? How many of them are praying? How many of them are relying on God? That call is not to the priests, but to all the baptized. Jesus sent them in pairs for support, for comfort. You know, too many times we have too many lone wolves in the world. We somehow get this notion from early in life that, as we try to become independent from little children, then that's who we become forever. And so to be vulnerable, to reach out, to ask for help, that's not in most people's DNA. And yet that's why we were put here together on this earth. Jesus asks us to call to bring peace and not judgment on one another. He says, if it's a peaceable person, it's going to rest on them. And if not, it's going to come back to God. Everybody's on their own thing. It's not for us to figure that out. Everybody has their own personal journey with God. He says, cure the sick. And maybe there were some miracles that happened. They seemed very incredibly happy when they came back. But Jesus wants us to go out and to cure the sick too. Not necessarily to perform miraculous healings that he performed, but to be there for one another. how much of the sickness of the world and the society that we live in is not just physical, but it's loneliness, it's depression, it's addiction that comes from that kind of stuff. It's people looking for meaning. And that's what we can help to give one another, with kindness, with care, with listening. But perhaps the most important point that Jesus makes as he sends them out is, you don't need a lot of stuff. He says, you don't bring money, no sack, no sandals. Oftentimes, especially in our society, in our country, it's the opposite. You know, we somehow think that the more that we have, the more security and the more happiness we will find. Jesus is telling us that the greatest gift that we have to give is the gift of ourselves. And he's telling us that you don't find that happiness and that comfort in those things. As a matter of fact, usually the more we get, the more we need, the more we want, the more we think that we need. Today, Jesus Christ is sending us out from these doors, as he does every week when we worship, into that world, into a journey that is every day of our lives. And he's asking us as we go those two important questions. What do we want? And much more importantly, what do we need?